Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for having me here today. So my name is Susannah Wallenstrom. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist, and I am so happy to be here to share this information with you, which I think can really help you with your success as an athlete. Before I get started, this is going to be a presentation. I'm going to try to just fly through it. So we're not going to take questions until the end. So the Q&A will be at the end. So if you have any questions, try to either jot them down or, but just wait till the end. If you raise your hand, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ignore you. But I am, hopeful that we'll get enough time for you guys to ask questions. And then you can always reach me after this. So I have a private practice here in Marin, and happy to work with athletes of any age. So I like to start by telling a personal story. It's hard to believe, but I was an athlete in high school, and I remember fueling on my way to games. A 2-hour bus ride, we would eat brownies, we would eat cookies, we'd eat candy, we might even drink soda, thinking that it was really not important what we ate. I remember not caring at all, just that it tasted good, I was hungry. And then, why was I not surprised that I was, holding my side and, having a hard time sprinting up and down the field? It might have had something to do with what I ate. But I just have some regrets that there was no discussion of sports nutrition when I was in high school. And I feel like this is really valuable information that you guys could really benefit from getting now. I mean, look at any professional athlete. They all have registered dietitians working with them and sports nutritionists. In college athletic programs, they all have RDs on staff now too. So as high school athletes, why wait? I think it's going to be really a good idea to take this information. You guys might know a lot of this stuff. It's not really rocket science, but some of it has to do with timing, which is what we're going to talk about, and then recovery. So hopefully you'll gain some new information from this today. So, what are we going to cover? Is this too loud? No? Okay. So today we're going to just jump into, what does everyday nutrition look like, and that the timing of meals and snacks, pre-exercise fueling, so what to eat right before, and then what to eat right after, and hydration, of course, is really important, and then Q&A at the end. All right, so which would you rather perform, like an old Gator station wagon or a high-performing race car? Obviously, the one on the right. As an athlete, you really need to consider what you're putting, what fuel you're putting in the tank. And while you could complete your next workout on gummy bears and Snapple, you're probably not going to want that because it's not going to help you perform well. So consider the fuel that you're putting in the tank. Okay, so it's not just about game day. I get a lot of questions about what to eat the day of the game, the day of the race. And that's important, but it's actually really important for you guys to consider what you're eating every day. We know that eating well can improve your mood, your focus, it can reduce anxiety, it can really boost your concentration, and so this is actually not just related to sports, this is related to how you perform in the classroom. So eating well can make a really big difference in your focus. So this has to do with blood sugar. If you think about, skipping meals, you might have a low blood sugar, it's really hard to concentrate. That's the same in the classroom as on the field. We also know that eating well can help prevent diseases later in life. Obesity, heart disease, cancer, and type 2 diabetes are all related to nutrition. And then sick days can be limited to by eating well. Okay, so, consequences of poor eating are, number one for an athlete, I think you're thinking about fatigue. You're going to want to make sure that you're not hitting that point where you want to collapse before the game's even over. Maybe some of you have felt this way, 3/4 into the game, you've run out of gas. So we want to make sure that you're eating well to prevent fatigue, because once fatigue sets in, it's actually easy to get sick. And then you're on the bench, and then, you're not going to be an effective athlete on the bench. So underfueling can actually lead to poor growth and short stature, delayed puberty, and mental dysfunction. And I have actually seen all of that in my practice. So just to give you another reason to eat well And then we can get into energy excess. And so for some athletes, I know you guys burn a lot of calories, but a lot of, some athletes might eat too much, especially the wrong things, and that can lead to weight gain that could actually poorly impact your sport as well. I know none of you want to lose muscle mass, that's important, or bone density. And then, of course, we don't want to have increased risk of illness and injury. So athletes, chronic poor eating can actually lead to some of these things. Youth and teen athletes, you are not mini adults. This is the biggest difference between you and adults is what? You're still growing. So, all those guidelines that are out there for adults, maybe what your parents are doing at home may not directly apply to what you're doing. So we have to talk about why your nutrition needs are different. So not only are you growing, but you're also playing a sport that might require a lot of calories. So this could be the time where you're eating the most that you'll eat in your whole life because of that growth and your sport. So I guess I want to just highlight that. You can talk to your parents about this too. And your plate's going to probably look a little bit different than what maybe your parents are eating at home. Maybe the same, but just not the quantity. The quantity might actually need to be more. Okay, so raise your hand if you've seen this before, the plate. Oh good, at least some of you. Okay, so I'm not going to focus totally on this because this is not as pertinent to the athlete, but this is the plate that I talk to everyone about because we want to make sure that you're hitting all these food groups, whether that's dairy or not, that's debatable, but calcium is really important. That should just say calcium. But it is important to try to form your meals around this plate. So 3 meals a day with maybe 4 to 5 of these food groups with 1 to 2 power snacks in between. I like to encourage everyone to eat every 3 to 4 hours. So that's again has to do with blood sugar. And blood sugar drops can really affect your health. And actually skipping meals can really make it hard for you to reach your nutrition needs throughout the day too. Especially when it comes to protein. Plenty of fluids, and then, sure, chips and cookies and soda are okay now and then. You can see they're not even on here, but they're called, we call them fun foods, so the 90-10 rule. 90% of the time you're eating the foods from this group, but 10% is coming from those fun foods. So I certainly don't like to lecture anyone about not eating those things, but if they're taking up all the space, and crowding out these other things, you're not going to be as effective. You're not going to be as effective as an athlete. So, really quick though. So this is the government, USDA icon, but this is the elite athletes plate that was created by the NCAA and the Olympic Committee. So I want to highlight these. There's 3 different plates. So this is actually the off-season plate. So you can see, sort of similar to the other one, that fruits and vegetables are taking up half the plate, 1/4 of it protein, and 1/4 of it whole grains. So as you move into more training and into your season, you can see what's taking up more space, and that's grains. So we're going to talk about carbohydrates. I think they're getting a bad rap, and I want to tell you why that's important that you guys eat them. But hopefully you were all eating them. You can see with the more energy that you expend in practicing games, the more grains you need. So you can see that's shifting. And then when you're in your season, or you have hard training, or you're, have a big game, that's where grains are actually taking up half the plate and should be, higher in energy foods. Your diet should be higher in those energy foods that you are burning. You're burning all of those in your games and in practice. I would guess that most of you are practicing for at least an hour and a half, if not 2. So you just have to consider what's being used as energy. So we're going to talk about that. Okay, this is a hard one for a lot of high schoolers, and I would say for my kids as well. They might roll their eyes a little bit at all of the talk about vegetables and fruits. Hopefully you guys are eating these, but the interesting thing about this for athletes is that eating fruits and vegetables can actually reduce inflammation and muscle soreness, and I think that can have a really big impact. And I hear a lot about I don't like vegetables. I hate vegetables actually, and I've met some people who really don't have one that they'll eat. So I would just say you gotta train your palate. If you want to be a successful athlete, you actually need to be eating these foods because they're a really important part of being a healthy athlete. And again, back to inflammation, these are the foods that are really going to help you. So the guidelines for most people, but especially you guys, is to eat 2 fistfuls of fruit and 3 fistfuls of vegetables every single day. So how do you do that? You try to get some with every meal and snack. So play on every plate. Just think about it that way. So this is just an example. With breakfast, having banana or fruit. With snacks, having fruit. Lunch, adding veggies, and maybe salsa counts as a vegetable. You can have that for your lunch. And then with dinner, just having either a side salad or some roasted vegetables. And so maybe I can see a show of hands who has had a fruit or vegetable today already. Okay, good. All right. Everybody else, you guys work on that. Okay, but I do want to talk about this. I get a lot of questions. Okay, sorry guys. I get a lot of questions about organic, and I don't want you guys to feel like if you can't eat organic that you shouldn't eat them at all. So this is just a helpful list that's put out by the Environmental Working Group every year. They test the pesticide residues of fruits and vegetables, and they print a list that is readily available to you online, where you have the Dirty Dozen, which is the most contaminated fruits and vegetables that even when you wash, it's hard to get rid of all those pesticides. And then you got the Clean 15, which you can feel really good about buying conventional because you really don't have to worry about the pesticide residues on those. So again, the bottom line is you need to eat fruits and vegetables, but I would say if you're going to choose organic from a list, this is the one to choose. So. Okay, to get into carbohydrates, protein, and fat, these are the 3 macros. I know you all know about these, but you can see, and this is really pertinent to an athlete, for carbohydrates, I really recommend closer to that 65% of what you're eating every day to come from carbs. It's your main energy source. Your muscles want carbohydrates. They store carbohydrates. Protein gets a lot of press, and I'm a big fan of protein, but you can see that the percentage from that group is a little bit lower. It's great for muscle rebuilding. It doesn't actually build your muscles, it rebuilds your muscles from working out. So just to clear that up. And then healthy fats versus unhealthy fats. The healthy fats are going to be like your plant-based, avocado, peanut butter. Fish, though, is also a really healthy fat because of those omega-3s. So you need all 3 in your diet, though. You need all 3. And, hopefully you guys are thinking about that sometimes when you're thinking about planning your own meals. Okay. Back to the, popular belief that is being held by some that carbohydrates are bad for you guys, and for most people, we need some carbs in our diet. So I just want to encourage you guys to make sure that you're eating them because they are the preferred fuel for your muscles, and if you don't have them stored in your muscles as glycogen, you are going to run out of gas and steam during games and practice. So has anyone heard of bonking or hitting the wall? That's from a lack of carbohydrates. So we want to make sure, and I actually worked with an athlete who had started his cross country season with really fast times, and then by middle of the season, he could not even finish a workout. And when we started looking at what he was eating very low carb and none at night for dinner. And so it was just interesting as he started increasing more carbohydrates, he actually picked up his times, and he got back to where he was at the beginning of the season just by changing that. So I just want to encourage you guys to think about how you're eating because it really can help. And so also, remember that your muscles get trained to store that glycogen, and that is important to just kind of be working on. You're not carbo loading, we don't really need to do that anymore, but you need to include them often. So carbs include grains, fruit, and dairy. Maybe you guys knew that. But. Okay, raise your hand if you think you need to eat a protein shake. It's essential. No one thinks this? Really? Okay. Then here's my answer. Do you need them? No, it's not necessary. You can get protein, all the protein you need from food. You can have a protein shake. There are, protein powders that are okay, but I would just say that they're like supplements, like getting vitamins. It's a non-regulated industry. They haven't been tested on kids under 18. And so I don't have a blanket recommendation for a protein powder, I really like to focus on food first. So I'm going to show you a few examples of how you can get your protein from food. Okay, so here's a female soccer player, 120 pounds. She needs about 60 to 95 grams of protein a day. So if she were to have 8 ounces of milk, 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, 2 eggs, a can of tuna, I know that's random, but beat it into tuna salad, and 4 ounces of chicken at night for dinners, that comes to 85 grams. So, well within the range of protein that she needs. But here's an example of someone who's eating too little protein, and that's going to be a soccer player who needs 60 to 90 grams. And here's someone who is maybe a lacto-ovo-vegetarian, so someone who drinks milk and eats eggs, doesn't eat meat, so kind of dabbling a little bit with protein all day. Not terrible, getting some, but you can see that's half the amount that she needs throughout the course of the day. So we need to make sure that you guys are getting enough protein. You don't want your own muscle tissue to be breaking down. You need to make sure that it is, that you're building muscle, not losing it. Okay, I'm going to breeze through a couple of these slides because there are a lot of examples here, but I have to talk about breakfast. Raise your hand if you had breakfast this morning. A lot of you, but some of you did not eat breakfast this morning. Okay, so my kids, yeah, I know, I just start a whole discussion. So breakfast does not need to be complicated, and it does not need to be, eggs and bacon and toast and, what you might do on a weekend. It needs to be there though, because if you skip breakfast, you're gonna have a really hard time catching up and meeting your nutrition needs for the rest of the day. So I'd like to see all those hands, that's awesome. A lot of children and teens do skip breakfast, and we know that breakfast skipping athletes tend to be really hungry later in the day and might even be hungrier later at night. So after practice, they're starving, so they eat a lot after practice, and they eat a huge dinner, and they might snack into the night, and then they're not hungry when they wake up in the morning, and that might be one reason why they don't eat breakfast. But I want to just say that backloading of eating most of your food later in the day is not going to help you again as an athlete. It's going to actually cause you to lose muscle and gain fat. And I'll say, of course, not what you really want to do. So eat your breakfast. It can jumpstart your metabolism. It can increase your blood sugar. It can reduce late day hunger. And of course, I hear sometimes that athletes or kids will say, I'm not hungry in the morning, I feel nauseous. And, it's hard to eat when you're feeling nauseous. So I would just say, we have the stomach acid in our stomachs, and if we can get food in there, it actually helps with nausea. So try to fight past that. And you can also train your body to be hungry by eating it for about a couple of weeks, okay? So just some examples, really quick. Smoothie, it could be eggs. Eggs don't take too long to make in the morning. I've even heard of microwaved eggs in a mug, but you have to try that. It's actually, scrambled eggs in a mug might be something you want to do in college anyway. Greek yogurt parfait has a lot of protein in it. And then peanut butter toast, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or peanut butter toast with banana is a super easy and delicious breakfast. Lunch, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I think the challenge with lunch is that, I know you guys can go off campus and that is great. It's just that, sometimes your choices are limited because you have time factor and maybe you're getting school lunch too. For you guys, some of you guys who, maybe there's a certain portion of school lunch that comes out, you might actually need double the quantity because it's not enough. And so, they're meeting guidelines for the average person, but not necessarily for the athlete. So I'll just say, make sure you're getting enough food at lunch, and then you want to make sure that you're digesting it before practice. So that's what I'm going to get to next. Okay, so here we are on game day. I think that this is a big question I get of what to eat, because maybe you have nerves and maybe you just don't feel hungry, but if you don't eat, you're not going to have fuel. So we want to make sure that you're making that connection. And then you also want to make sure that you're eating in a way that doesn't give you a stomach ache and cramps when you're running on the field. So what to eat right before. The breakfast is important, you can't skip it. Remember, you're storing glycogen in your muscles. And then you want to have a lunch that's heavy in carbs, kind of moderate protein, but not tons of protein only, like a chicken Caesar salad would be, you know, not an unhealthy meal, but not necessarily enough carbs for you guys. So you would need to eat either like a side of a roll on the side, or maybe even half a sandwich also. So you want to also be careful about fried foods and heavy cream sauces and anything that's, you know, bags of chips, you know, maybe pretzels, that's going to be a good carbohydrate, but fried food's going to be pretty difficult to digest in time. I do want to just tell you too, maybe you already know this, but carbohydrates are quick to digest, where protein takes about an hour, and protein's about 3 hours, and fat is about 4 hours. So if you are, you know, eating, especially if you're eating fried food right before your game, you're going to feel it. So just be careful about that. So that, this is just something to consider. You're just going to want to make sure that you do eat something, but here's the thing. Right before exercise, we know from the research that eating is actually better than not eating. So you're exercising in a fed state versus a fasted state, and we know that that can improve your performance. So especially if you've had a hard time eating during the day, you're going to want to try to eat something right before. But again, this is simple carbs. This is like fruit. Seems to work well. Maybe some of a sports drink if you can't eat anything. Maybe some sports gels or sports beans. You don't have to get that stuff if you want to do dried fruit. That can be like raisins. And maybe applesauce, like fruit puree. But this is that sort of topping off your glycogen stores. So this is going to help you perform and just give you that extra boost of energy. And this is where I think it could be a real advantage to have that energy during the game versus maybe others who are not feeding themselves well during the day. Maybe some of you guys you feel like you need to eat during your practice. I don't know if that's even allowed, but maybe that's where sports drinks can really come into play. But little things, like if you have activity for less than an hour, you don't really need to eat. If you are exercising for more than an hour, you're going to want to actually get some more glycogen storage going on because you have probably kind of depleted all of that. So if you can eat a little something or drink a little bit of a sports drink, it can actually delay fatigue and maintain your blood sugar. So this is, something to talk to your coaches about and maybe even have, I think at games, things show up at halftime, but not always. And an hour and a half game where you're running all out the whole game, you might feel that fatigue come on, and that's from your depleted glycogen stores. Here's the thing though, you cannot do something new on game day or you will suffer. You do not want to try anything new, and my best example of this is actually someone that I met with who had a cross-country meet, and she was so nervous all day that she didn't eat anything, and then she actually felt really hungry an hour before and ate an entire Cliff Bar, like a peanut butter filled Cliff Bar, an hour before she ran at her maximum speed. Needless to say, she had massive stomach pain and had terrible GI issues. So that was because she never practiced that, but also she ate the wrong thing. So I'll just say, do not try something new on game day or race day, because you might suffer some consequences. And I think the last thing you want to do is be stuck in the bathroom, during one of your big games or races. So it happens. A lot of GI distress. A lot of athletes have GI distress, and when I say that's gastrointestinal. So, and I won't ask for a show of hands, but upset stomach and nausea, cramps, bloating, all of these sort of unpleasant effects of eating something that might not work with you. That's why we want to train your GI tract. We want to do things at practice days so that you get used to it. And then a lot of times, if you have like an early morning game or maybe a swim meet, or if that's happening early morning, maybe there's not even enough time to eat before. You're going to want to get up early and eat something. I always advise that. But if you can't, think about that meal the night before and doing a little bit more of a carb meal, like cereal or bagel with peanut butter. How are you doing? Okay. We'll just get through this one. Recovery. So this is, raise your hand if you've heard of the window of opportunity. Some of you have heard of it. Okay. So this is an interesting, and I put this on your handout too. So after exercise, the muscles are actually like sponges, and they're really ready to bring in nutrients for recovery. This is really important if you have practice every single day and you want to reduce muscle soreness. It doesn't take care of all the muscle soreness, but it can really help with recovery. You need those carbohydrates, you need that protein, and that's why I talk about chocolate milk a lot. Maybe you've heard this, but chocolate milk can actually be a great recovery drink because it has that 4-to-1 ratio of carbs to protein. I make my girls actually drink this, and they don't mind, but it is something really good for them to have. So it has whey protein, which is really great for fast absorption, and then amino acid leucine, which helps with muscle soreness. You don't have to have chocolate milk though, there's some other options, but that 30-minute window is something to consider to maximize your recovery. And then you're going to want to go have a meal. So is that reasonable, I hope, to think about either bringing it to practice or going right home and eating that, and then especially if you have to wait for dinner. If you have dinner right away after your practice, that's fine too. Okay, gotta get into dehydration, and this is all about the color of your urine. And this is, I know, such a lovely topic, but I want you guys to take a look at this, and actually I want you to look at this one too. Hopefully the one at the bottom does not look familiar to you, because that means you're extremely dehydrated. If it looks like apple juice, that is too dark. If it's lighter pale yellow, that's going to be a much better sign of that you're hydrated. So, those headaches, the moodiness, the weakness, dizziness, that's all signs of dehydration. It might be other things too, but this is the first thing that I ask about when I work with athletes. So how do we get hydrated? It's important that you start drinking fluids from the minute you wake up to when you go to bed at night. So we want to stay hydrated. Water is best, unless you're working out for more than an hour, and then you might want to incorporate a sports drink. Do we need to be sitting around drinking Gatorade all day? No, we don't. It's just too much sugar, but there are definitely times when it's appropriate for replenishing those fluids that you've lost, especially after an hour. And then, I don't know if any of you know if you're a salty sweater, but there are some people who sweat a lot, and the salt, you can actually see it. It could be just long workouts, but that means you're losing a lot of sodium, and you're going to want to replenish that with an electrolyte-filled drink. But basically, I don't need to go through all of this. I want you guys to just think about drinking water. Hopefully you're all carrying water bottles around with you and drinking lots of water from the water fountains all day. Okay, just really quick to show you the difference between, say, a female track runner and a male lacrosse player, just kind of the difference in calories. I mean, this is obvious, probably, but this is just to think about this. I think I want to just emphasize that different sports require different nutrition needs. And there's golf, and that's golf, and even cheerleading, and all the sports are going to have different nutrition needs, and that's why I was asked to kind of lay that out on a handout so that you guys can go to your individual sport and find out a little bit more about how best to fuel yourself for that sport. Because I can't really make a blanket recommendation for all of you guys that you need this many calories, this much protein, because they're all so different. And they're different compared, for each of you. Gender makes a difference too. But that's what I do as a dietitian. I work with athletes one-on-one to help figure out what they need. So if you're interested in that, that's something to consider. So putting it all together, we want to make sure that you're meeting your nutrition goals with carbohydrates, protein, healthy fat, and fluids. And here's how you can do that. I'm sorry to go fast, but I want to take your questions. And I have to talk about sleep. Get your 8 to 10 hours. We know that fatigue from lack of sleep actually impacts performance in a negative way. And I know it's hard. I've got 3 girls who are not always the best at this. Homework and everything else gets in the way, but it can make a really big difference to you as an athlete, and I'll just say you're going to feel a lot better if you're getting your sleep. So, final words of advice. If you can make, good eating habits can make a good athlete great, and vice versa. Bad eating habits can make a great athlete just good. And if you can make time to train, you can make time to eat. So just fuel your nutrition, fuel your sport with good nutrition. And if you guys need any more help in a one-to-one situation, I'm in practice and be happy to work with you too, so you can talk to your parents about that. So, now I get to take questions from you guys.